I want to love this game, but the thing is, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Rising Sun. See, the thing is, I've talked about this game a lot in my entire YouTube journey. Actually, it started from the very beginning. I did a tutorial on it. I've done a whole video about the inserts on it. So I've covered this game extensively on my channel from the beginning. But something's changed recently since I moved to the brand new studio. And I feel like my mindset in general has changed too, because as I'm narrowing down and niching down games, I've started to realize that I don't really like a lot of games in my collection. And I am currently on a warpath in niching down my games even further, because on top of, the whole pandemic and everything, it's really hard to get everyone together. So when we do have those moments of game time, which we've had, a lot more recently than before, which I'm very grateful for. But since we have these very, very small pockets of time to gather with friends and family, I want those times to matter and to count. And in part of me doing so, and part of me going on that warpath, I need to make sure that those times count with really good games. So I think I'm being way more critical on games than I used to before. So welcome to the warpath, starting first with Rising Sun. Rising Sun is a 3 to 5 player game set in Feudal Japan, where everyone's controlling an asymmetric clan and they're striving to accumulate victory points over the course of several seasons. You can send your troops to worship kami or the gods, you can fight over the map and make and break alliances with other players, and with the actions that you take in the game, they're actually controlled by other players at first, and then everyone's going to take part in playing those actions all together. They're also empowered if you have alliances. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into telling you what the game is, since Rising Sun has been out for quite some time now, but let me go ahead and start off by telling you one of the most frustrating things about this game right out the gate. Number one is the tea ceremony. Why does this phase exist in the game? I feel like Rising Sun can reach so many more audiences if this phase was actually just removed out of the game entirely. It can become a 2 to 5 player game right from the get-go if you just remove the tea ceremony. And it could also reduce the cost of the overall game because you're removing all the components involved with alliances. Let me explain why. The tea ceremony in this game is pretty much the negotiation phase. You're asking everyone else to team up with you, so you share very, very strong benefits. All of your actions get major upgrades if you ally with another player. For instance, if you decide to play the action called Harvest, normally this lets you gain 1 coin in the game. With an ally though, you collect every single resource on the map that you currently have the most force in, instead of just 1 coin. With that rule alone, why wouldn't you want to ally with another player? In that case, there really is no comparison of whether or not you should or shouldn't ally with another person. And for me, I'm not the biggest fan of games where, offering incentive to another player or pretty much bribing another player is part of the objective of the game. I will admit though that this is really cool. Check out these alliance markers. This is how you ally with another player officially. That's cool. The mechanics behind it, not so much. To be honest, it's kind of awkward, even with a very, very close group of people. I played with my own family and friends, of course, very, very close-knit group of people, and it still induces an awkward sense between the group when you're trying to figure out who's going to ally with who for this game. One of my friends, Daniel at Board Game Feast, also mentioned that he played this game with a group of strangers, and then I was thinking about it, and it's a good point too, because I've only played this game with friends and family. If I were to play this with a random group of strangers, I can't even imagine how interesting and awkward that's gonna be. Maybe for those that have played this game during like the prototype season or when it was introduced at a con, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. But how would it be if you're at a group of, you're at a table with 5 strangers and one person has to be the odd one out? So then if you're asking, hey, the person next to you, hey, do you want to ally with me? And then they're like, no, I'm actually gonna ally with this person. And then one person's gonna be left out for sure, like 100%, they have to be left out because 5 people. That feeling alone is not a good feeling, and now I wonder whether that instance is enough to keep playing the game. It's a little weird, and it makes me wonder whether or not it's worth it to keep playing when you feel that way. Next point, another action in this game is called Train. So for this one, it lets you pretty much buy different monsters or different cards from the selection that you have in the game. You buy them with coins, and oftentimes there are monsters available for people to purchase, and this is awesome. The table presence that these miniatures, pretty much statues, give is unreal. New players love these statues. Like, who doesn't? Who wouldn't want the Oni of Hatred in their army, or like the River Dragon in their army? These are unreal. But ultimately that leads to battle. And this is how battle works in Rising Sun. For battle, you take all of your coins and you're gonna hide them behind your clan screen. And then you're gonna bid your coins on different sections on this board. After everyone is done bidding, you reveal your screens and then compare them from left to right. So you have seppuku, where you kill every figure you have on the map in order to gain honor and victory points. You can take one hostage and steal one victory point from another player. Higher Ronin gives you more tokens, which pretty much counts as more force in the region that you're fighting in. Whoever has the most force or units in that one region will win, and all of these get resolved before the last one kicks in, which is Imperial Poets. For Imperial Poets, you gain 1 point per unit that was killed during this turn. Okay, to be honest, I really did like battle at first. Initially, you have all these custom unique coins that you're using to like bid on different sections of war, and it's really cool because no other game has done this before. It's really unique. You have pretty much 4 different phases that you're bidding on, and there's bluffing involved, and I love that. But with time, I realized that it wasn't as fun as I had hoped. If you're fresh to this game, you're thinking, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna put all my units on the map, and I'm gonna spend all my coins on seppuku. I wanna win that war advantage, because if I do, then I kill everyone off the map, and I gain victory points for every single soldier that I have on the map. And that's gonna score me a bunch of points. But then you realize later on that that actually locks you into place. And if you play with someone who is more experienced in the game, you realize that they can capitalize on that mistake. For those of you that are gonna get technical, it's not really a mistake if you're playing with the Fox clan, and there's a whole bunch of gray areas there. But ultimately, my point here is this. There is a specific mechanic that the game kind of leads you towards. A lot of new players will lean towards this because it seems like it's the one move that's gonna win it all. But in reality, it's gonna end up locking you into that specific play. So if I were to commit seppuku with all my soldiers, I'm gonna gain a lot of points at first, but then on later turns, I have to make all these reparations in order to gain all of my units back. And that's the only thing that this pathway leads you on. So it essentially locks you into one path, and arguably it can even lock you till the rest of the game. Ultimately, I think battle feels repetitive because there's no really like, yes, I totally won that fight, or my God, I got so lucky in that fight moment. There's no really distinguishing, defining moment like that. Instead, it's more so you kind of checking boxes off, like, oh, okay, you won seppuku, let's work on take hostages next. Okay, I want to take hostages, let's move on to Higher Ronin. It just feels like check marks or check boxes that you're kind of ticking off as you go. For me, I want there to be like tension leading up to that fight, and then when you reveal, like something crazy, something interesting happens. But when you unveil your clan screen, it's more so, okay, I have more coins than you. For this section, what about the second section? Okay, you have more coins than me for take Ronin or Higher Ronin. Okay, moving on to the next one. So that part felt a little bit lackluster for me. Moving on, the third and final point I wanted to talk to you today about Rising Sun is this. So the parts that you think are important, the part that where you want to invest in, like say battle for instance, the part that you want to go all in on thinking that it's going to reap you a bunch of rewards, typically are not. That part for sure is underwhelming. And that doesn't really feel good, especially when you're investing in battle, but then you realize later on that maybe you shouldn't have invested that many coins in battle because it wasn't even worth it to win anyway. So it's more so not a war game. Actually, Rising Sun is not a war game at all. It's more so a bluffing and negotiation game at its core. And I love bluffing games. Those are fun because they're like psychological battles with you and your friends. But if you have to bluff every single time for battle, it gets a little overdone. It loses that dramatic fun effect that bluffing typically has. With that said, I always like to end on a good note regardless. So production value here is obviously insane. It is so beautiful. This is one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, which is why I've held on to it for so long. This game looks so good, and every time I brought it out on the table, there's always compliments about all the minis and all the coins and all the tiles that people get to like play with. Like, people love the components, and it has been a unanimous consensus. It has been a general consensus that everything looks amazing. The theme, while it doesn't necessarily match the mechanics, is really cool. I love the abilities you gain as you're worshipping different kami and all of the asymmetric factions. The variety of actions everyone has makes the game have really good traction, and it keeps things relatively interesting. The final rating for me, I would have to give Rising Sun a 2 out of 5. Production value is so good in this game that it literally makes the game seem much more fun than it probably would be for most. Abilities of both the Kami and the asymmetric clans makes you feel way more invested in the game for sure, since those do add replayability. You kind of want to keep playing the game again and again to see how different clans play out and what it'd be like to gain different Kami abilities. Unfortunately, this is not a war game. It's a bluffing and negotiation game that gets repetitive really fast. The game feels emotionless because there are no moments that really reward players for stunning plays. We're kind of just playing through it just to get through it. And lastly, there isn't really a fight in battle. You're just waging coins, and sometimes you kind of just want to lose in battle. That way you reap more rewards, in other different places. Battle ultimately comes down to who has more of these units in one region than the other. So 2 out of 5 for me. I do appreciate though that there is a really big community for Rising Sun. I know there's a ton of strategies going around and people love this game. I would say that it's definitely a niche within another niche. I genuinely love seeing people enjoy this game and going through different clans and different approaches and strategies as they're playing through each one. But for me, as someone who enjoys battle, who really likes, unique battle mechanics that are interesting, that give really aha moments in board games, and on top of that, as someone who doesn't really like bluffing and negotiation and sweet talking other people around the table, if you share those same interests as me, then I probably wouldn't recommend Rising Sun. I would recommend, trying it once at least, maybe from a friend, family, but before buying a copy, definitely try one out first and see if this is the right game for you. Because again, it's different and it's not what it seems. Okay, with that said, do you disagree? Do you agree? I'd love to know down in the comments below. Let me know how you feel about Rising Sun. Obviously, I want to love this game with all the inserts and time I've invested into wanting to love it, especially with these unique wooden ones that aren't even being made anymore. But this is now going to be on the chopping block of a brand new series I'm starting after I finish the product photo series. It's going to be called, it's in between right now being called The Cut or Unchained. So it's going to be 3 games on the chopping block, and then I'm going to eliminate or keep some of them depending on different factors. But individual reviews are coming out first, and then we'll start up that series. So thanks for joining me here. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you all in the next video.